Namidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. The last 1.5 days we have been working on mostly theory. Or the kind of blueprint that we have about something which doesn't have a blueprint really. But then the mind has to understand it, the limited brain has to understand it. So we all need some kind of a blueprint. So I would say it's a very rough kind of a blueprint. It can't be accurate. Because we're looking at something which can't be grasped. As the Upanishad says, that which can't be grasped by the eyes or the ears or the tongue or even the mind. So there we are. However, being practical human beings, you and me, we need to have some approach to this. So yesterday's discussion in the evening was about the special instruments of perception in the human system, which when activated, perhaps we can move closer to that which cannot be easily defined by the ordinary brain. Ordinary brain, not an extraordinary brain. And the whole process of yoga, now you can use mind and brain together, mind-brain / brain, because you can't see the mind, but you can see the brain. You can't, but somebody else can. So we'll stick to the brain for the moment. So what we are going to do is to see how yoga as a science, step by step, changes an ordinary brain into an extraordinary brain. That's all. So it's very matter of fact. Not even the concept of God comes into the picture. Because yoga is a step-by-step technique. You got it? So how can we do this without saying, I surrender everything to the Lord, let Him... Well, it's a nice psychological medicine, but it doesn't work really. And it's a wonderful way for lazy minds. But if you need to work on this, then you need to go step by step. And the process is not a shortcut. It has to go slowly, little by little, like anything else. In fact, Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutras, says the results of yoga happen only with nairantarya abhyasena. That means regular practice. When he says regular practice, not only physical practice, but also thinking of all the ideas that one had about it constantly. When both go together, then it happens. There is a breakthrough, and the ordinary mind or the brain, which uses only the 5 senses, suddenly finds itself in possession of something different. And then it perhaps begins to sense what is extraordinary. The good news is that the potential for the extraordinary is with every one of us. Nobody is exempt from it. So which is wonderful. So today we are going to look at if there are practices which can take us forward and open up the other instruments of perception, and for which we need to influence some of the endocrine glands in the system, including the pituitary, pineal and so on. And then we will discuss about the energies which are in the system, which can be opened up and made to function in its proper, full way. Now, the energy functions in everyone, but in small spurts. For instance, I'll give an example of this wonderful energy which is in all human beings, but which generally all human beings experience also, and that is sex. Now, please don't conclude that we have a sexual technique here, okay? That's a different subject altogether, not my cup of tea. There are some such things which we don't know. I know, but I don't. That's not my discipline. So, what happens? I hope the young people don't mind. I mean, they're not so young. They can, you know, I think it's good to have some education on this. What happens when you have sex? You know, after food and sleep and shelter, a human being's main desire is to have sex. It's the highest. That's why everybody tries differently. People try to look good, people try to talk to people try everything for that. Because it's not a fault. I'm not saying it's a fault. It's part of your innate desire to fulfill. So, and when it happens, it is so powerful that you want it to happen again and again. Because there is nothing you enjoy more than that. It's the best. Now just look into this a little carefully. In the last part of the act, when one is supposed to be in ecstasy, supposed to be because there are hangovers always the next day, there is a little small time, interval of time, infinitesimally small, when you don't exist, you can't think about yourself. All is lost. All is lost happens even when you fall in love. Why do they use that expression, fall in love? Nobody jumps in love. It's finished. You are finished. So, at that split second, you can't think, you can't have nothing happens. It's that little minute, half a minute or whatever, when you are really free and you have nothing, you have completely given up, is what we seek. And we are saying that this, what we seek, is there in all of us, unexplored, even without the act. Because with the act it becomes kind of, first, cumbersome, second, it becomes dependent. But there is an independent way of arriving at that time, that little minute where you don't know, you're in bliss. Why? Because you don't know, you're not there. But you're there because you experience it. So this is the yogis consider this to be the manifestation of that energy in the lower centers. And the attempt in yoga is to control that and make these energies ascend to the higher centers. So in the lower center, this is what you get, this mind-blowing ecstasy. What happens when it goes to the higher levels of God? Must be even more mind-blowing. If the mind is not blown off, then you can't enjoy it. We are coming to practice, don't worry, I'm not wasting time. We need some background. There used to be a very kind of a mad kind of a sage who used to live in the south of India, in Tiruvannamalai. Well, he was not Ramana Maharshi, somebody else. He used to be absolutely crazy, he thought we are crazy, but people thought he was crazy. He used to wear an old coat, which I think he was wearing for 16 years without changing, with patches and so on. And he used to sit and smoke and just talk to people. He talked good English because he was from the north and people didn't understand Hindi in the south, so he used to talk in English. So, actually, he was the first person who called me M. Because I live in a place called Madanapalli, which starts with M. So one day I went to see him. For the first time, I just entered the room. It was a small, like a hut room. And he said, "Oh, M has come from Madanapalli," he said. "You're from Madanapalli?" I said, "Yes, M." He said, "Okay. Sit down." But since he knew I could also talk Hindi, so we had a small little conversation. And he used to be a professor in the Banaras Hindu University before his mind got blown. So he was sitting there and it was interesting because he was talking. He said, look at this, people will come now. Oh, I have to write an exam, bless me. I have to do this, bless me. Nobody is interested in anything more. He said, what to do? And so on. And then there was one gentleman standing in the queue to see him who looked like an industrialist, and he was the only one who had an umbrella for his head. His assistant was holding an umbrella for him. He stood there for a long time and he ignored him. So I thought this was deliberate, because why is he not calling him? There are so many people coming in. And then after a long time he said, you, he said, you must be a prince. He said, no, I'm an industrialist. He said, okay, so what do you want? So this man hemmed and hawed a bit, and then he said, he thought he should impress people, by saying that I don't want anything. So he said, I want peace of mind, that's all. I mean, he may be right, because being a big industrialist, peace of mind may be the last thing he has. I want peace of mind, I don't want anything else. And this man, Ramsuratkumar, started laughing loudly, and he was kind of, this abdominal laughter which either saints have or mad people have, one of the two. He was bubbling out with laughter. And since I was sitting next, I was his victim. So while laughing, he gave me one shot on. Oh, I thought my shoulder was gone. It was so hard. And then he burst into laughter. And in between peals of laughter, he said, this is very funny. This man wants peace of mind, but my mind has gone to pieces. So, when it is blown, then the mind is gone to pieces. Which doesn't mean that you have become crazy, please. Something else. So, because it's so tremendous that you don't know how to define what to do. It takes a long time sometimes to come to terms with it and then translate it, to then mingle with the world and communicate with the world. But there is always this crazy little thing inside, which suddenly says, break this all down, get out. So anyway, we are trying to look into what we can do from the yogic point of view. While there are many textbooks on yoga, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are considered to be the earliest standardized attempt at presenting yoga. And it's called Ashtanga Yoga because there are 8 angas. Anga meaning parts. Which means the preliminary steps, there are 7 parts, and the 8th part is what you need to look at. So it's called Ashtanga. Nowhere in the Yoga Sutras has Patanjali himself used the word Ashtanga. In the 2nd chapter, when he begins the practice, he says, here begins the practice of Kriya. So we are also going to deal with Kriya. So, first the definition of yoga according to Patanjali. The definition is yogas chitta vritti nirodha, which means yoga is the stilling, eliminating of the conflicting and disturbing waves of thought from the mind, from our awareness, let's put it that way. This is the aim of yoga. Because when that happens, in that calm, quiet state, when there are no disturbances, no conflicts, something takes place. One ascends from the ordinary to the extraordinary. So, this is the definition. So now let us look at the angas one by one before we go to the practice. We started at 9:30, right? So, the first part of it are the rules and regulations to be followed by the practitioner, which is very important. They are called yama and niyamas. rules and regulations. And it starts with one important regulation, rule, which is called ahimsa. Now don't mistake ahimsa for, just by saying non-violence, it doesn't define ahimsa. Ahimsa is the tendency of the mind of not wanting to cause harm to others. Till that remains, even if you are not physically doing it, you're not free of it. That's what is called ahimsa. The innate desire to harm somebody completely ceases, even if it is for your own profit. But if that has completely ceased, then you don't have to practice yoga, you're already there. So, as a practice, as the first steps, you try to do it as much as you can, to the best possible, to your capacity. That's all we expect. Can't say completely. When you're sitting to meditate, if a mosquito is biting you, you might have to kill it. But it's good to avoid the mosquitoes from coming to bite you with a mosquito net. So this has to be worked out practically, how to do it. And the others are, one is to stick to the truth. Satya. Why stick to the truth? Because it's a contradiction to say that you're going to find the absolute truth and spend 24 hours telling lies. When you are aiming at something which is called the truth, you should also try to change your daily life and follow truth as much as you can. It's very important. Okay. All I'm saying is try your best. If you commit something, don't say, oh, it's okay, but say, it's a mistake, but I won't repeat it, and carry on. And the third, these two are the usual yama niyamas. There is one which is called moderation in everything. Moderation in food, moderation in entertainment, moderation in exercise. There has to be some middle path, not extremes. In fact, a yogi is defined as someone who doesn't eat too much, or eats too little, or sleeps too much, or sleeps too little. Which is just a metaphor to show that don't carry things to the extreme. Eat enough to keep your body healthy. Well, it depends on what you mean by healthy. When it's too much, stop eating. The principle followed by yogis, of course, practical principle is to eat and stop eating before you feel, now I'm full. It rarely happens, because it depends on the taste. Now, after many days of eating in Breitenbush, when I go back and somebody makes idli sambar, I feel like having 5 or 6 of them. So, I'm just saying. You have to be careful, that's what I mean. Don't let the tongue take you for a ride. The food is very healthy here, but it may not be according to your taste. That doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? So, therefore, moderation in diet, also moderation in entertainment. There's no harm in watching TV, but don't watch TV all the time. And especially young children, when they're watching TV, don't go and shut it off. It's a wrong thing to do. Let them watch for some time and then say, no, this is boring, and switch it off. That's better. So, moderation. And any other moderation in everything, in all activities. Exercise. There can be too much exercise. I learn yoga asanas and do it for 2 hours every day. Finished. Sure death certificate. So, moderate everything. Right? And then there is what is called asteya, which means not to desire for somebody else's property. It's what we always do, but to watch out that it doesn't get out of hand. Somebody is driving a nice car, you go, I wish I could. Well, that guy looks nice in the new car. You may not look nice in it. So, it's not that you not appreciate something, but don't grab. Get that mind out of your mind. It looks nice there. It doesn't have to be for you. So this is moderation in everything. There is also moderation in the practice of meditation. If you in the beginning start meditating with no moderation, instead of becoming a yogi, you might be a psychiatric patient. So careful. Practice only as much as you can, as much as it is asked for you to do. Don't do too much. Then some ground rules for Kriya especially. This is generally for yoga, which is why the yogis are warned, don't go and dip early morning in the river and have a bath. It's not going to make you holy. It might get you sick. And if you are sick, you cannot practice meditation. You can't do yoga. When I was a young man, I was so enthusiastic about that in India, when people go to holy places, they first take a dip in the morning. So I ran at 4 o'clock in Banaras and dipped. Oh, it was freezing in winter. And I came back, and Babaji, my guru, said to me, are you trying to become a Buddha, or are you trying to become a Buddhu? A Buddhu in Hindi means idiot. He said, you would have gone in the afternoon when the water was a little warm. So, it's important that you don't carry anything to the extremes. The middle path, which is what the Buddha said, middle path. He also was one of the Shramanas, the Jains, who used to fast and do all kinds of torture to the body, pulling the hair out and so on. And then he left it and became a little more moderate, so they gave up on him, saying that this fellow is finished. Then he became the Buddha after he ate some food. So, moderation. The other thing about Kriya is, one, specifically about Kriya, practice at least once a day. If you can't practice once a day, it's not worth taking up. You can do twice if you like, no problem. And on a holiday you can do for more time. But generally at least once a day. And the whole thing will take you around half an hour to 45 minutes. And don't say, I don't have time. Then it's not worth it. So, once a day. Is there a time for Kriya? Yes. Early morning is the best. When I say early morning, well, could be any time after 3 a.m. down. But better to get it over before the sun completely is out. It's a good time. However, you can do Kriya at any time. If you miss the morning, you can do it in the afternoon. Just make sure that you hadn't had a full meal. If you had a full meal, leave 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Do it. And last, but not the least, don't start teaching others before you know what you're doing. We can call it setting up shop. Especially these days, there are more gurus than disciples, unfortunately. So you might set up shop. You say, where did you get your Kriya from? Oh, Shriya, it must be authentic. So how much? $3,000. So you collect $3,000 and you send 50% to the head office and keep the rest with you. Nowadays that's how it works. We don't have anything to sell here. So, don't set up shop. Practice and be perfect And when you're ready to do that, you'll figure out for yourself. Or you can ask somebody who taught you, am I ready to teach? Well, you are ready to teach when your mind has attained a state where it can remain tranquil in the midst of all circumstances. Then you're ready. Not even if you're having visions. In the preliminary practice, you might begin to see lights. That doesn't mean you have already attained. The other day somebody came to me and said, my Kundalini has gone up to my Sahasrara Chakra. What am I to do next? I said, nothing. Why have you come to me? It's gone. Because if it is really gone, the question, what am I to do now, won't come. So we have to be a little careful. We live in the age of the internet, where everything can be done for a fee. So don't set up shop. Practice yourself and figure out. Okay? So, here are the few preliminaries. And then the practice. Now, according to Ashtanga Yoga, you start first with asanas, postures. In Kriya also we have postures, but we have simplified it and made it a few, not too many. Because you give more stress on the rest than on the asanas. Then comes pranayama, which is also there. Breathing. Controlled breathing, patterned breathing, rhythmic breathing, and so on. And then comes pratyahara after pranayama. Pratyahara means the capacity to fix your attention on something exclusively, which comes only through practice, and also to be able to detach yourself from it at will. Many people can achieve this one-pointed attention in what you are in, but to withdraw from it immediately and instantaneously is a difficult process. This is called pratyahara. So when a yogi drives, he is not meditating, he is driving. Complete one-pointed attention in driving is meditation by itself. If you meditate while driving, not only are you in danger, the guy is on the street. This is pratyahara. When I am sitting here, I am not thinking of my next book. I am thinking of you, and there is no other thought in my mind right now. And as soon as I get out of here, you are finished, I am off. I mean, finished meaning you are no more there. Pratyahara. Touch and withdraw. And then from after pratyahara comes dharana, dhyana, so on. We will learn that with Kriya. Now before we go into this, how many people here have already taken Kriya from me? Okay, and how many have practiced? And how many have regularly practiced? Yeah, so now please, those who have taken and have not been regular, please become regular. Do it. Okay? Otherwise it's of no use. I'll be wasting my time and energy.